Welcome to the Care Clinic Pod. I'm Emma, and this is Jones.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Care Clinic. Today we're going to dive into something that might sound a little unexpected, especially if you're new to fibromyalgia, but it's a symptom that can really impact your life, and it's called jelly legs. And yeah, I know it sounds kind of strange, almost funny, but we found this really insightful article about it. And for those of you who deal with this, you know it's no laughing matter. So before we get into like the hows and whys, let's start with the basics. What does it actually feel like to experience jelly legs?
You know, it really is like what the name suggests, unfortunately. It's this sensation of like weakness and instability in your legs, almost as if they could just buckle, give out beneath you at any moment. Imagine just trying to walk across the room. Maybe you're just going to the kitchen for a glass of water and suddenly, bam, it hits you. Your legs feel like they're turning to jelly. It leaves you with this wave of uncertainty, like, can you actually trust your legs to hold you up? It's unsettling, to say the least.
Wow. Yeah, you're painting a pretty vivid picture there. And honestly, it sounds kind of scary.
And that's exactly why it makes daily life so challenging for a lot of people. Things that most people take for granted, just simple everyday tasks, those become really daunting, you know? You're always battling this underlying fear of falling, and that takes a toll not just physically, but emotionally as well.
Yeah, that makes total sense why this would be so disruptive. So it sounds like this is more than just like your typical muscle fatigue after a long day, right?
Yeah.
What's actually happening in the body to cause this jelly leg sensation?
You're absolutely right. It's definitely more complex than just having tired muscles. You see, fibromyalgia affects your nervous system, right?
Mhm.
And that messes with your pain signals, how your brain interprets things. Well, that disruption, that miscommunication, it plays a huge role in jelly legs. Your muscles themselves might be totally capable, strong even, but because those signals are jumbled, your brain and body aren't on the same page, and that leads to this feeling of weakness and instability.
It's like your brain is getting a faulty message about what your legs are actually doing.
Exactly, and here's where it gets even more interesting. Fibromyalgia also messes with how your muscles produce energy. Think about it. Our muscles need a steady supply of energy to work right. But with fibromyalgia, it's like your muscles are constantly running on fumes, which makes them more prone to fatigue and, you guessed it, weakness.
Okay, so we've got this nervous system miscommunication, AD, we've got muscles that are struggling to get the energy they need. Anything else contributing to this, like perfect storm of jelly legs?
You know, there's one more piece to this puzzle, and it's called guarding. Now, because your body is often in pain with fibromyalgia, your muscles are basically on high alert all the time, like they're always bracing for impact, tensing up. Imagine holding your body really stiff, expecting to be bumped. How exhausting would that be?
Oh man, I can't even imagine holding that tension all day long. Just thinking about it makes my muscles ache.
Exactly. It's exhausting. And that constant tension, that guarding, it just adds to the fatigue and weakness of jelly legs. It's like your muscles are stuck in overdrive, which makes it even tougher for them to function properly.
Wow, so we've got these three factors. Then the nervous system glitches, the muscle energy shortage, and this constant guarding all working together to create that feeling of jelly legs. Okay, that all makes a lot of sense, but let's shift gears a bit now, talk about something a bit more hopeful, because I know our listeners are probably wondering, what can you actually do about this? The article mentioned some promising management strategies, right?
It absolutely does. And that's what we'll be diving into in part two. Because even though it might feel like your body is working against you, there are things you can do to take back some control. So when it comes to actually managing those pesky jelly legs, the article highlights a few key strategies. And the first one might surprise you. It's exercise.
I was just going to say, exercise is probably the ass time thing on your mind when you feel like you can barely stand up.
Exactly. It can feel so counterintuitive, but trust me on this one, it's about starting slowly, like really gently, and focusing on building up your strength and stability. Remember, we talked about those muscles struggling for energy? Well, exercise, even gentle exercise, can actually help with that. It's like we're retraining those muscles, reminding them how to work properly again.
So like building a stronger foundation from the ground up.
Exactly. And as those muscles get stronger, they're better equipped to support your body, which means less of that jelly feeling.
Okay, that makes sense. But what kind of exercises are we talking about here? Because, if you're already dealing with jelly legs, the thought of hitting the gym might feel pretty overwhelming.
I hear you. And the article actually specifically mentioned balance exercises, which you can do right at home. There are tons of simple yet super effective exercises that you can easily incorporate into your day.
Give us some examples. What are some balance exercises that our listeners can try?
Sure, like try standing on one leg while you brush your teeth, or maybe hold onto the counter for support while you do some gentle leg lifts. Even just being mindful of your balance while you walk, like really focusing on it, that can make a
I
difference.
love that these are things you can literally do anywhere. No fancy gym equipment needed.
Exactly. And the beauty of balance exercises is that they have this like two-for-one benefit. First, you're obviously improving your balance, which is huge for reducing your risk of failing. But secondly, and this is so important, it helps with the fear factor. When you feel more confident in your body's ability to balance, you're less likely to be afraid of movement, which is a big deal because that fear can really hold people back.
It's true. That fear factor is so real. It's like your brain is sending you all these warning signals,
Yeah.
even if your body is capable of moving.
Yes. And when you give in to that fear, when you start avoiding movement, it actually makes the problem worse. Your muscles get weaker, your balance gets worse, and boom, you guessed it, the jelly legs intensify. It's like a vicious cycle. But by incorporating balance exercises, you're essentially breaking that cycle. You're building confidence and stability at the same time.
Okay, I love that, breaking those cycles. So we've got exercise with a focus on strength and stability,
Sure.
especially balance exercises. What else can help manage jelly legs?
Well, the article also really stresses the importance of diet.
Diet. Okay, I'm curious. What does food have to do with my shaky legs?
Remember how we talked about those muscles needing a constant supply of energy? And how with fibromyalgia, it's like they're running on fumes.
Right, right. Like they need the good stuff, not the junk food.
Exactly. So by focusing on a nutrient-rich diet, you're basically giving your body the high-quality fuel it needs to power those muscles. We're talking lean proteins, healthy fats, plenty of fruits and vegetables, all those good things we know are good for us.
Okay, that makes sense. It's all about giving your body the building blocks it needs to function at its best. But what about those times when lifestyle changes, even with the best intentions, just aren't enough? What happens then?
You're right, fibromyalgia is complex, and sometimes we need a little extra help. The article does talk about some options for pain relief, starting with over-the-counter medications.
So like things like ibuprofen or acetaminophen, would those help with jelly legs?
Exactly. Those are good examples. And yeah, they can provide some temporary relief, especially during a flare up when those symptoms are really intense. But it's super important to remember that these medications aren't a long term solution. And it's always best to check in with your doctor before starting any new meds, even over the counter ones, just to be safe.
Absolutely. Always better to be safe than sorry. And your doctor can help you weigh the potential benefits and risks. Make sure it's the right choice for you. Speaking of doctors, the article also mentioned some prescription medications, specifically for fibromyalgia, right? Not just over-the-counter stuff.
It did. And I think it's great that they provided some context around these medications. They didn't just like list a bunch of drugs. They actually explained what these drugs do in the body, how they work, which I think is really empowering for patients.
Okay, I like that. So what are some of the prescriptions they mention, and how do they relate to fibromyalgia? And more specifically, how do they actually help with jelly legs?
Yeah, so one medication they talked about is pregabalin. You might know it by its brand name, Lyrica. And basically, this medication works by kind of calming down those overactive nerve signals we were talking about earlier. Remember how fibromyalgia messes with pain processing? Well, pregabalin basically tries to like turn down the volume on those pain signals so they're not hitting your brain with as much force.
So it's not like directly targeting the muscles themselves. It's more about how the brain is interpreting those signals coming from the legs.
You got it. It's like putting a filter on those pain messages so they don't feel quite as intense. Now, another medication they mentioned is duloxetine, brand name Cymbalta. And this one's interesting because it's technically classified as an antidepressant, but it's also approved for treating chronic pain, including fibromyalgia pain.
Yeah, I've heard of that, using antidepressants for pain management, but it always seemed kind of strange to me. Like, how does that even work? Mood and pain feel like such different things.
It all comes down to these amazing chemical messengers in our brain called neurotransmitters. Duloxetine works by increasing the levels of certain neurotransmitters that actually play a role in both mood and pain perception. So, by kind of tweaking those neurotransmitters, it can potentially help with both the emotional and the physical symptoms of fibromyalgia.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. So it's like two birds, one stone, potentially easing the emotional and the physical burden.
Exactly. And I know I sound like a broken record here, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to talk to your doctor about any medication, whether it's over the counter or prescription. They can help you figure out if medication is right for you, and if so, what the best option might be considering your individual needs and medical history.
Right, right, for sure. This is not medical advice, folks, but it's definitely good information to have so you can have those informed conversations with your healthcare provider.
Sure.
And speaking of conversations, I think it's awesome that this article didn't shy away from the emotional impact of jelly legs, because it's not just a physical symptom, right? It affects you mentally and emotionally too.
Oh, 100%. Imagine that feeling, the frustration, the fear, the uncertainty of feeling like your body just won't cooperate. It can be incredibly isolating. And all of those emotions, they can really impact your mental health. The article specifically mentioned anxiety and depression as being linked to jelly legs. And I mean, it makes sense, right?
Absolutely. If you're constantly worrying about falling, if you're canceling plans because you're scared your legs might give out, that's going to take a toll on anyone, no matter how resilient you are.
Exactly. And then there's this unpredictability factor. You never know when those jelly legs might strike, which just adds to the anxiety, makes it hard to relax, to plan things, to truly enjoy life. And here's the kicker, that emotional distress, it can actually make the physical symptoms worse too. It's like this vicious cycle. The physical feeds the emotional, which then fuels the physical, and on it goes.
Those cycles, right? It's amazing, though, how interconnected our bodies and minds truly are. But hey, knowledge is power. The more we understand about what's going on, both physically and emotionally, the better equipped we are to manage it all.
Couldn't agree more. And that's where having a good support system is so crucial. The article really emphasized how important that is, whether it's family, friends, a therapist, support groups, it all makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's so important to have those people you can talk to, people who get it, who can offer support and encouragement without judgment. Having that network, that safety net, it can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. Dealing with a chronic condition like fibromyalgia with all its ups and downs, it's not something anyone should have to go through alone.
Well, on that note, we here at Care Clinic are dedicated to providing you with the resources and information you need to navigate this journey. Be sure to check out the Care Clinic app for more information on managing fibromyalgia symptoms. We've got tons of great stuff on there. And hey, before we wrap up, I just want to say a huge thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of fibromyalgia. It's been a really insightful conversation. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe to the Care Clinic podcast for more discussions on managing your health. And don't forget to check out the Care Clinic app for additional resources and support. Until next time, take care of yourselves, everyone.